Good day, Paul Harvey fans. Welcome to another episode of Paul Harvey's The Rest of the Story. Stick around after the episode to hear the rest of the story. Here's Paul Harvey.
The rest of the story. Authorities collared the kidnapper in a telephone booth in Lausanne, Switzerland. He was Roman Wardas, 25, a Polish refugee. How did the police know they'd get their man? Because at the moment of his arrest, he was making ransom demands from that very telephone booth. Investigators had 1,000 questions, first and foremost among them, where is Charles? Well, Charles was safe enough, the kidnapper assured him, was quite unharmed, and he did lead them to a hiding place. He did lead them to the abducted man, who seemed no worse for his harrowing 10 weeks as a hostage. Authorities told the kidnapper, "You'd better start talking." And it was then that he related the rest of the story. Roman Wardas had always been fascinated with the idea of kidnapping, even more fascinated with the idea of making a lot of money. He'd read of a recent abduction in Italy, after which the abductors got away with an enormous ransom, so he grew determined to be similarly successful. And his target was to be the patriarch of a prominent family in Switzerland. The family fortune was said to be in excess of $100 million. Wardas enlisted the aid of a 39-year-old Bulgarian named Gancho Ganyev. A plan was formulated, and on the date March 1, 1978, the kidnapping was set to go. In the middle of the night, Wardas and Ganyev abducted Charles. The kidnapper's prey was in no condition to resist. Over the Christmas holidays, he had fallen seriously ill. He accompanied Wardas and Ganyev without a struggle. Soon thereafter, frantic family members began receiving ransom demands by telephone. The family pretended to go along. They gave Wardas the number of their attorney, through whom negotiations could presumably proceed. And over the following 2 months, there were dozens of telephone calls. And finally, the family attorney managed to keep Wardas on the phone line long enough for the police to trace it. And that's when they nabbed him in a telephone booth in Lausanne. And that's when he led investigators to Charles, and he fingered his accomplice, and both criminals were brought to justice, and peace returned once more to the charming village overlooking Lake Geneva's eastern shore. And Charles is also at peace again, as indeed he was on the night of March 1, when the kidnapper showed up to remove him from his grave. You see, Charles really was quite ill over the holidays. He had died Christmas Day, only to be unceremoniously dug up not 10 weeks later and reinterred in a secret cornfield 10 miles away. Well, the body is back in its original resting place now, and it's encased in cement this time, lest some other adventurer seek to extort money from the family by stealing its patriarch, the most celebrated member, who died December 25, 1977, in the Swiss village where he spent the last quarter century of his life. The kidnapped victim, Charles, was a performer who could just not resist one last show on the road. Charlie Chaplin. And now you know the rest of the story.
And now for the rest of the story. Charlie Chaplin died on Christmas Day, 1977, and was buried next to his family 2 days later. As Mr. Harvey pointed out, Roman and Gancho got the idea to steal the body and hold it for ransom after reading about a similar incident in Italy, which was successful. 24-year-old Roman and 38-year-old Gancho had been working as automobile mechanics in Lausanne when they came up with the kidnapping plot. On March 2, 1978, the two men drove to the unguarded cemetery in a small truck one of them owned. They walked a short distance into the cemetery and started digging. It took them 2 hours to dig up the coffin. Once they got it out of the grave, they drug the 300-pound coffin back to the small truck. They drove to Herman Bronneman's cornfield on the eastern side of Lake Geneva and reburied the coffin there. After newspapers ran the story of Charlie Chaplin's body being stolen, the Chaplin family received numerous calls demanding ransom. The police took each one seriously, but concluded that most of them were false. They got enough information from Roman and Goncho that they took their call more seriously than the others. Rather than speaking with police or the Chaplin family, the grave robbers negotiated with the Chaplin family's attorney. Police set up an electronic tracing system in the attorney's office. Police were stationed at each of the 200 telephone booths in the Lausanne area. At first, the pair demanded the equivalent of about $600,000, but the Chaplin family's attorney was clever. He worked them down to $250,000. Police arranged to pay off twice. Well, sort of. The police actually had no plans to hand over any cash to the grave robbers. Charlie Chaplin's widow refused to pay for the return of the body. The police, who waited twice to meet up with the grave robbers, carried no ransom money. Both times police tried to meet up with the grave robbers, at the last moment the kidnappers broke off all contact and failed to show up. Finally, though, during one call between one of the kidnappers and the Chaplin's attorney, police arrested one of the kidnappers at a phone booth. At police headquarters, they compared the man's voice with recordings they had made of the ransom negotiations. The kidnapper confessed, revealed the name of the other kidnapper, and took police to the field where Chaplin's body was buried. On Wednesday morning, May 17, 1978, police escorted the kidnapper to the cornfield, but the kidnapper was unable to find the burial spot. Herman Brunneman, the cornfield owner, had noticed a spot in the field where the earth appeared to have been disturbed, but dismissed it as being done by wild boars. Herman thought little of it, plowed his field, and planted corn as usual. His wife only remembered this when police started digging in the field early on that Wednesday morning. Unable to locate the burial spot, police brought in mine detectors to locate and retrieve the stolen body. Chaplin's body was transported to the Lausanne Forensic Institute for examination, but investigators determined that the body had not been touched. The Chaplin family considered what to do with Charlie Chaplin's body. Reverend Alan Borswick, the Anglican chaplain at Vervey, said, "My advice would be for cremation, followed by the scattering of the ashes in a crematorium garden of remembrance. That way, nobody could possibly re-steal the body." But as we learn from Mr. Harvey, Chaplin was reburied and encased in cement. Roman and Goncho were charged with disturbing the peace of the dead and trying to extort ransom. Disturbing the peace of the dead. The maximum penalty for their crimes was 7.5 years. I'm Brad Dison. Thanks for watching. And as Paul Harvey would say, good day.